it's the best part of every month. The beginning of every month / end equals everyone uploading their reading wrap-up videos for the month, and I love it because they're just the best. Like, all these new books circling in and out. So welcome to my March reading wrap-up. What I read in March. Buckle in, because it's going to be a wild ride. Okay, I read quite a few different books. Quite a few things happened this month, so cannot wait to share with you guys. So let's get right into it. But before we get into today's video and today's reading wrap-up, I want to say thank you so much for the sponsor of today's video, which is Book of the Month. If you guys are a regular viewer of my channel, you guys know how much I love Book of the Month. This is nothing new to you guys, but just to kind of put it freshly in your brain. Book of the Month is a super popular and fast-growing book service for readers. Their mission is to help promote new and emerging authors and help readers find books that they love. Their team vets hundreds of books a month and gives readers their curated choice of selections from new and early release titles, so you can spend more time reading and less time researching. One of the best parts about Book of the Month is that they are entirely risk-free, so you can skip any month at any time and you will not be charged. Plus, they have the best price for new release hardcover fiction. You guys can get your first book for just $9.99 with the code GETFUN. Again, guys, that is the code GETFUN to get your first book for $9.99 this month. It is an amazing offer, and you guys can also visit the link down in my description for even more details and sign up for your own membership to get your first book for $9.99 with the code GETFUN. Just want to make sure we're all on the same page. Just want to make sure. So, of course, now we're going to talk about this month's selections very quickly. So, my personal selection for this month was Bittersweet by Susan Cain. And of course, I think one of the best parts about the whole entire membership is you get a bookmark, and this bookmark is Use Me or Lose Me. Always iconic. Always. But as I said, my pick for the month is Bittersweet. Now, this is actually a book about how sorrow and longing makes us whole, and I've been talking about how I want to read more nonfiction books, at least one a month, and I've been talking about how I want to read some more nonfiction books and some more books that take a little bit more brain power for me to read. So this book is absolutely up my alley because I actually love the whole entire premise and thought of this book. So I absolutely cannot wait for this to be one of my more recent reads. Of course, the other books that you have to choose from for this month is True Biz by Sarah Novick, Like a Sister by Kelly Garrett, and Kayaki, and The Good Left Undone by Adriana Trigiani. I'm sorry, I literally probably mispronounced those, but those are all 5 of the book selections for this month. And also, a little note that I want to put in there for you guys is that Book of the Month has now added up to their selection for the month that you can pick from. So any month can differ from 5 to 7 selections for you guys in one month. This month it was 5, last month it was 7. Who knows what next month is going to be, but we're all going to be sure to stick around and find out. Thank you again to Book of the Month for sponsoring today's video. Make sure you guys visit again the link in my description to sign up to get your first month for $9.99 with the code GETFUN. And now we can get back into our wrap up for March. Are we ready? Are we ready, party people? Oh god, that felt a little bit cringy. Not a little bit, but a lot. So, this month, March, let's talk about it. First of all, I read 13 books this month, roughly, and I actually was in a reading slump this month for about 2 weeks out of the month, maybe even a little bit more than that. I actually went to California, and I only read on the plane there, and then I did not even read until last week. And I went to California kind of like in the beginning of March, middle of March. So I was in a book slump for a huge portion of March, and I feel like everyone else was in a book slump. Like, I've seen so many people post about how they were in a book slump in March, so I'm very glad that I'm not the only one. But I actually filmed a video that I just got done filming yesterday, and for that video I kind of got myself out of a book slump. So I guess it kind of turned out to be a normal month. So let's get into it. So the very first 2 books I read this month were Thrive and Addicted After All. So I closed the books, literally and figuratively, on the Addicted series. Now I still have to finish the Calloway Sister series, and there's the overall epilogue novel. But I did. These were the 2 first books that I picked up. I guess I can't talk right now. For the month, I actually have reading vlogs of these up on my channel. They are spoiler though. I'm sorry, I'm lazy and don't know what is and what's not a spoiler for these, so I didn't even know how to do non-spoiler vlogs for the Addicted / Calloway series, but they are. Maybe I'll try to make my next ones non-spoiler. I'm sorry, I'm a terrible person, but I did overall enjoy these. So I rated Thrive a 4 stars, and I rated Addicted After All a 4.25 stars. And to just kind of put my thoughts into these books, I actually said that I didn't really enjoy the 3 previous Addicted books. I didn't really like Lily and Lo in those books. I felt like those books weren't really written to make them likable, if that makes any sense. Like, you were supposed to root for them, but I feel like you weren't supposed to like them a whole lot. And I liked them in the Calloway books that I saw them in, and I absolutely just loved them in these 2 books. They were amazing, and these were just so good. These made me actually start liking this series I was a little bit iffy, and then I read the Callaway and liked it, and I loved it after reading these books. So these were a solid 4.25 stars. And then I read my Mariana Zapata book of the month. If you guys know, I always pick one Mariana Zapata book to read a month, and this month it was All Roads Lead Here. And you know how we're kind of transitioning into like springtime, so this book was kind of like the perfect book to read. This book got a 4.5 stars for me. It was absolutely amazing. It was one of my faves for Mariana Zapata, even though I've only read like 3 Mariana Zapata books. But still, I absolutely loved this. I loved Rhodes in this. He's like a police officer, and I also absolutely loved Aurora because I don't know why, like it just felt, I loved the vibes of it. The story was good. The only thing that I would say is that obviously we know Mrs. Mariana Zapata is the queen of slow burn, but for this one in particular, I felt like it was such a slow burn, even though you could tell that they liked each other, that I feel like they weren't together for enough of the book. But there's one thing that Mariana Zapata does when she kills the game, because of the price you have to pay for a slow burn, is that she always repays it with the epilogue. Her epilogues never let me down. This next book is a book that I read on the plane to California, and that was Alex Approximately by Jen Bennett. This is a book that I saw like all throughout my childhood of reading, and I never picked it up and read it, and I finally read it on the way to California, which was so fitting because this actually takes place in California, so on the plane going there, reading about California, and this is also a 4.5 for me. Even though this book didn't put me in a slump, but I was in a slump after I read this book, even though that did happen, I really love this book, and I feel like, wait, where was I going with that? Where was I going with that? I completely just like lost track of what I was doing. I don't know where I was going with that thought, so it's gone. But this book was just absolutely amazing. I loved the vibes and everything of it. It was just, you know, YA doesn't always, I don't know. Most YAs are not a 5-star for me just because they're maturity level, and sometimes the romance feels a little cringy, but this was one of those YA romances where I did very much buy into their romance and thought it was super cute. And the only thing that annoyed me, because this book is basically about Bailey and Porter, and they actually, I don't know how to describe this. So Bailey actually is on this like online chat room with somebody that she talks to movies with about, and his name is Alex, and she decides to move to California for him, but then she meets Porter and they're kind of enemies and they don't like each other, but then she starts falling for Porter and doesn't know what to do about Alex, and it's just kind of like, the end of it, I was a little bit like, I feel like it was pretty obvious, you know, like throughout the book as you're reading it, you're like, this is pretty obvious for like both parties. And so I just was, that part just kind of got me. So it was just 4.5. Not just, it was still a good book and I thoroughly enjoyed it. But like I said, that's then didn't put me in a slump, but I was in a slump after I read that book because I feel like I was just in a slump of life after that. I didn't have any want to film, edit, read, anything like that. I was just kind of like in a slump in myself after I got home from California. There were some things that I was dealing with within myself, like health-wise, and so I was just kind of like trying to re-navigate my life. So I didn't pick up another book until a week ago. So that book was actually The Summer of Broken Rules. Oh my gosh, this book was absolutely amazing. This book was a 5-star for me. Oh my gosh, I loved the vibes. It made me so happy and excited for summer. It gave me VSCO girl vibes. If you guys know what I'm talking about, it was just like giving me VSCO summer. It was giving very much VSCO summer, and I was loving it. And also it takes place on Martha's Vineyard, which I'll put together some aesthetic little photos for you guys right now. And actually I looked up the aesthetic of Martha's Vineyard while reading this book because I just kind of liked to like imagine what I was looking at. And when I tell you that the pictures popped up on Pinterest of like the bookstore and stuff that they talk about in this book, so I was just imagining it. It was absolutely amazing. The story was absolutely amazing. It was so fun. Our main character, Meredith, goes to her cousin's wedding in Martha's Vineyard that they went to every single summer growing up. And they basically always have this big annual like water gun fight. It's called Assassin. You like play assassin with water. Okay, so it's playing assassin with water gun. So basically you have somebody and you're supposed to like spray them with a water gun, and then whoever they have, they pass it on to you, and so forth until there's 2 people left. So Meredith teams up with Whit, who is the groom's brother, I'm pretty sure, and they basically like team up with each other, and it is so cute. Like some of the most cute scenes that I've ever read in a book. It was absolutely amazing, and I ate this book up. Loved it so much. Got me out of my slump. 5 out of 5, 10 out of 10. would very recommend. Okay, and then this is where we go into books that I read. All of these next books are books that I read for a video that's gonna be coming out either before or after this. I don't want to spoil it, so I'm not gonna say anything. But these are the books that I read for that video. So first of all, we started off the video with my book club's pick of the month, which was Dial A for Aunties. Now this is like a kind of rom-com, like a literal rom-com, and it's basically about Madeline, I don't know how to pronounce her name, but basically her mom forced her to go on a date and she accidentally kills the guy and then calls her aunties up to help her hide the body, and they actually are like, a wedding is going on where her first love is at. And it's like so funny. It's very, very unrealistic, but it is so funny and so enjoyable. And I gave this book 4 stars. It was very, very easy to get through. And then we have Throttled by Lauren Asher. And let me just tell you, Lauren Asher's books, I could just eat them up. Like literally eat them for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. They are so good. Like, I already knew I was gonna love the Dirty Year series, but I love the Dirty Year series. It is so, so good. And also not me going on Amazon and buying all 3 of them after this video. Just Destiny things. Like, I love it. Cannot wait to read the rest of them. Lauren Asher has quickly become one of my fave authors. Her books are just top tier. The character is always so diverse and the storylines are always just like top tier, and I absolutely love them. This is like F1 racing. The whole entire Dirty Year series is about a bunch of different F1 racers, and the only thing I would say is that I did give this book 5 stars. Don't get me wrong, this book definitely got 5 stars for me, but the only thing is who the next book is about. I feel like you basically just knew in this book, and this book's the first book in the Dirty Year. I don't know. You get what I'm saying? Like, I feel like we saw a lot of the couple in this book, and that's literally the next, I don't know. I mean, of course we don't get all the details, but still. And then of course, I had to pick up Terms and Conditions by Lauren Asher and read it right after that one. This one also got 5 stars for me. I'm telling you guys, Lauren Asher is just top tier. She knows how to write an epilogue as well. That's also top tier. This one was just so good. Of course, this is the second book in the Dreamland Billionaire series. Loved the fine print. That also got 5 stars for me. And I somehow loved this book just a tiny bit more. I didn't love Declan, but I loved Iris. Like, she made up for everything that Declan was lacking. I absolutely loved it. Storyline, amazing. Everything about this book was just chef's kiss. Like, everything. I loved all of it. And I love how Lauren Asher's covers make sense, like, after you read it. Next, I read Everything I Know About Love by Dolly Alderton. Again, I don't rate people's memoirs. I just feel like it's kind of to do, because it's like somebody else's life, and who am I to sit there and rate what somebody else wants to write about their life. But I did DNF this about 50% through. It just wasn't for me. I didn't relate to it at all, and for me to read memoirs or any nonfiction, I feel like I have to have a little bit of relatability. There were things that I related to in this book. There were some very good quotes, but just not enough to keep me enthralled. A lot of the stuff talking about a bunch of drug taking and everything like that. Also, I do want to put up some of the trigger warnings for this book, because there are a lot of like triggering things that she talks about in this book, and just a lot of it I was like not vibing with. I'm just gonna be honest. No hate to her, no hate to anyone who relates to that book, but I just didn't, so I just put it down. And then I read Before We Were Strangers. This book got a 3.75 from me. This book was, I was a little bit disappointed. Like, I definitely thought this was going to be like a 4 to 5 star read for me. It's more of like a 3.5, honestly. But this is about basically 2 people who fell in love in New York in the 90s, and basically things just didn't work out, and they kind of reunite one day, and you're reading the whole entire book, and majority of this book is like then, so it's not even really a then to now. I would say like about this much of the book is them in the present years, but still I loved it. It's not one of those books that I cared about them as people. Like, I loved their characters. Like, you know how sometimes you'll have a book that you're more supposed to learn lessons from the story than absolutely love the people in it. This one was more of like a takeaway of relationships and of true love. Like, I felt like, unfortunately, when we read some of these books, you know, that's not really how relationships and love is, unfortunately. But with this book, it felt very real, and how sometimes you have to work really hard for things, people don't communicate, and things go wrong, you know, and I feel like it was very realistic, and for that, I really enjoyed it, so 3.5 stars. And then I decided, Destiny, you should just close the book on off campus. So I read The Legacy, and I actually gave this a 3.75 stars. It was definitely not as bad as everyone made it out to be. Funny enough, I talked about in my previous video that I did not like Dean. from the score. And then in this book, it made me like Dean and not like Allie. So it got flip-flopped, and then I actually enjoyed it. The only thing is that there were like a few instances. If you haven't read The Legacy, skip ahead. So like, for example, in the first book, we learn about how Logan and Grace get married, and we're like reading all of this, and you kind of know that they're going to get married, but then they don't even talk about it. It's like they talk about like, oh, we're going to get married, and then they don't like even, she didn't even write the scene where they get married. You just like hear it from other people that they got married. So why did we do all that and we didn't even get to have the scene where they get married? But then anyway, you know, you have Tucker and Sabrina, and then of course Garrett and Hannah, my absolute faves. In this book though, it did make me not like Garrett a little bit. But you know, I never hold that much resentment in my heart for Mr. Garrett Graham. He's still one of my top book BFs. So I wasn't really that upset with this book. So it was a 3.75. It was not that bad. You guys, I feel like over-exaggerated a little bit. Just a little bit though. And then next we have Maybe in Another Life by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This book I gave a 3.5 stars. This was another book that you don't absolutely love the characters, but you love and learn from the story. And this is a book that I absolutely really loved the concept of it. This book follows two different storylines. One where Hannah goes home with her best friend Gabby, or the other one where Hannah goes home with her first love Ethan, and you read both storylines, and if she would have chose this path, what would have happened, and if she would have chose the other path, what would have happened. And that's kind of following the same premise as the Midnight Library. Like, you know, the Midnight Library plays around with the idea of if I would have chosen this path, what would have happened in my life, so on and so forth. And so I actually like really love when books discuss that, and it's a very complex idea to think about how different your life would be if you made such a minuscule decision. This book did it beautifully. Again, there is romance in this book, and I feel like it's not the forefront of the book. I feel like Taylor Jenkins Reid never has like the actual couple romance as the forefront of the book. You always are more learning lessons, and that's what I love about Taylor Jenkins Reid's writing, is that it's always deeper than just the romance, and I love that. I love an emotional story and an emotional connection. Nothing else other than that. It is an open-ended ending is what I will say. You know, there's no definite answer, just like if you read The Midnight Library, it didn't have a definite answer either. You kind of got to leave it up to your imagination, but it was fun to see how kind of both storylines cross together in some way, and that even if you make a different decision, this still would have happened in this storyline, and this still would have happened in this storyline. It just would have been different a little bit. Anyway, I thoroughly enjoyed that book. 3.5 stars. So I would recommend you guys to read it if you care about a premise like that. And then the very last book that I read this month was Good Girl Complex by Elle Kennedy. This book got a 2 stars for me. I really didn't enjoy this book. It kind of reminded me of After. If you've read this book and you've read After, maybe you get what I'm getting at. And I just didn't like it. I did not even buy into the connection between the two in this book. I didn't even like think there was any chemistry at all, and it was very boring. And I'm just going to leave it at that because I don't want to say anything else negative about the book. Those are all of the books that I've read this month. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Let me know down below if you've read any of those books that you've read this month, books that you're going to read next month. I am going to be coming out with my April TBR, so be ready for that as well. But with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. I love you guys. Make sure to like, subscribe, do all of the stuff that you know what to do. You guys aren't newbies on YouTube, so you guys know what to do. And again, do not forget to visit the link in my description to get your first book for $9.99 with the code GETFUN at bookofthemonth.com. Thank you guys so much again for sponsoring today's video. And with that being said, I will see you guys when I see you. Peace.